Welcome back to the Black Prosperity Podcast, where we have real conversations with leaders, innovators, and change makers shaping Miami's Black community. I'm your host, Danielle Jeter, the Public Information Officer here at the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust. And on this special episode for Women's History Month, we have two dynamic women in business and leaders who are doing just that, pushing Miami forward. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my guests onto the show. We're going to be talking about leadership, debunking some of those not true myths about women working together and women in leadership, and just sharing our vision for the future of Miami. So today on the show, we have Alexis Brown, who is the founder and CEO of SocialXchange. And we also have Joy St. Clair, who is also the founder and owner of CoSpace. So if you are in Miami and you're not living under a rock and you like to be out in the mix, you've definitely been to CoSpace, and you have for sure been to a SocialXchange experience.
Definitely.
Right? So we're excited about this episode. And welcome, ladies. How are you feeling? You look amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us. This is so exciting. I love that I'm with you, Alexis.
Yes, I know.
You see what I did there?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I wanted to have a conversation, just as I said, with leaders who are not only building for your own or your own self-interest, but you actually, what you have created in both of your companies really pushes Miami forward, and you're creating ecosystems, you're creating community, and none of that is easy, right? I understand not what it is to like own an actual brick and mortar business, but to create community, I know that it goes beyond you wanting to make ends meet or you wanting to build your own portfolio. You think about the hearts and the needs of the people. So let's start things off by giving us, an introduction to your companies and the work that you're doing, and why did you start? Let's start with Alexis.
Okay. Of course, my name is Alexis. I'm the owner of SocialXchange. I founded SocialXchange in 2012. And when I founded SocialXchange, the intent and the purpose was to create a sense of community for Black people. At the time, I did not know that I was starting a movement for myself, as well as years down the line, this would be my full-time business. It was something that I literally did for fun. Because after graduating from Hampton University and moving back to South Florida, I struggled to find community in the community that I grew up in. I grew up here in Miami. I'm a Miami native. And people would say, there's no Black people here. There's no young Black professionals here. And I'm like, there has to be at least 100. There has to be at least 50. And there was. And we started with a monthly happy hour that we did once a month at TSL Lounge in Wynwood. And this is when Wynwood was at the beginning. There was only Wood Tavern, TSL Lounge, and I think Caffeine Lounge was there. So imagine Wynwood with nothing in it, or imagine Miami without Wynwood. Like, there really wasn't many options to go. So that was the backdrop of the time of when I started SocialXchange. And over the years, anything that I've created has been because of something that I thought that Miami could need, or it was me pivoting because that was the best opportunity that I could create for SocialXchange to create our events. And so over the last 12 years, 11, 12 years.
That's awesome. 12 or 13.
Amazing.
So from 2012 to now, that's like, oh my God, I'm sorry, 13.
We'll go with 13.
Yeah.
That's dope. 13 years. Congratulations on that. Yes.
Full-time business, 8 years. And now we're a full-service event agency. We specialize in event production, logistics, ideation, marketing strategies. And my favorite space is just community outreach and creating authentic partnerships and programming for organizations that are looking to interface with Black and Brown professionals. I feel like a lot of times corporations don't always get it right. And they may want to, but they don't know how to do it, and to do it in an authentic space where it's received well, and that there's an ROI, because at the end of the day, there has to be a return on investment of time and money. So that's a little bit about SocialXchange and what we do. And yeah.
That was an awesome overview and introduction.
Thanks.
Thank you. Joy?
Yay. So hi, I'm Joy. I'm the owner and founder of CoSpace. We're a co-working and content creation studio in Miami Gardens, Florida. And essentially, we are a hub. We've become a space where Black business owners can come and feel community. They get resources, but most importantly, they get work. They get work done. We have a podcast studio. We host workshops and events, and we're also a rentable event space after hours. So you were asking what made me
how'd you get into owning this business?
I created it because there wasn't the space I was looking for. So when I became a remote worker, I wanted to find a space to work where I felt appreciated and not just tolerated, and where I felt seen and safe, but I also felt community. And it just didn't exist. And I remember driving to Wynwood, because that's where the co-working spaces were, but no one there looked like me, right? Or they're playing house music and I want to hear something else, right? Or you come in there and you're the only Black person. So you have all of their attention or none of their attention, but both for the wrong reason. And I just remember these constant misfires. And one day I just had that moment of clarity, like, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know I'm not the only person looking for it, but it doesn't exist. And if you really care enough, if this voice will not go away, it's because you need to create it. And so I listened and I took the leap. And this month actually makes 2 years.
Wow, it feels like it was longer.
I love it.
You're just doing your thing.
Every time I tell people that we just hit 2 years, they're like, "No, it's been more." And I'm like, "No, I promise you, it's only been 2 years." But I'm very grateful for the journey that I've learned. It's a lot of lessons have been learned. A lot of things I've kind of picked up along the way. But to me, the thing I'm most proud of is the community that has found me, that has been developed and created through this space. So if you haven't been, you got to pull up, you got to check it out. And if you have been, then thank you for being a part of the community.
There's a lot of co-working spaces in this area. And so for you to be named, I saw just recently last year as Florida's best co-working space.
That crazy?
That speaks volumes for you to be 2 years in business. But even when you enter your space, you just feel a great sense of like, this is cool. Like you can just let a load off.
Thank you.
And I've always been a person who's been about co-working and being at spaces like that, because prior to that, we used to just work out of coffee shops.
Yeah.
Me and my team, my young team, I was so young when I started my business right out of Spelman. So, you had to be creative with how are we going to make this work? Bootstrapping a business with little to no cash, no investors. So we knew how to do the coffee shop thing, right? And so when the co-working spaces came about in Philadelphia, a lot of them started popping up. And I will say that one place we did not feel welcome and we had a membership and we had to let them know was WeWork.
I hear that a lot.
WeWork often makes you feel tolerated, right? And so it's crazy that, all the way down south, the same sentiments resonates here. So kudos to you. WeWork has been around for so long, but you got best co-working space of the year. So that's awesome.
Yes.
And when they reached out to me, at first I thought it was a scam, so I ignored the email. I got an email that said, "You've been nominated." And I was like, "Yeah, right." And then I got it again and again. And I'm like, okay, what is happening here? So I did some research and I was like, oh, this is really a thing.
That stuff, yeah.
And then they called me and they're like, "Are you not getting our emails?" And I'm like, oh, I wasn't aware that it was a real person. And they told me that I was nominated 19 times.
That's awesome.
I didn't even know this was a thing. 19 people knew about this, did the process to nominate me, and this company's reaching out to me to say, "Hey, we're trying to get you to win this thing. You keep being nominated. Are you interested?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Now I am."
That's amazing. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Alexis, you successfully created a platform, like you said, for Black professionals to connect and collaborate. What are some of the gaps that you see in events here in the city and networking spaces? And, what are some of your ideas around filling those gaps?
More Black ownership. The biggest challenge that most event producers face, including myself, is finding spaces that are open to our demographic, that are open to our music, that are at the quality that we're looking for. and that, want to work with us. And so I think, we just have to be very aggressive and intentional about owning more Black-owned quality spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We are a lot better than what we were 5, even 10 years ago, but we still have leaps and bounds to go. I mean, even with co-space, like in Miami Gardens is great, but we need 3 co-spaces in Miami. We need one in Liberty City. We need one down south in Richmond Heights. Like there needs to be more, right? Because there's no lack of Black people in Miami, contrary to popular belief. We are not.
I love that you just debunked that. Yes.
Yeah.
Keep spitting that fire.
We're here. But we have to be intentional about bringing ourselves together and creating those spaces. So that's definitely one of the challenges. I think that another challenge is sometimes just creativity. Or also that I would say that Miami can be a very transient city. So you always have people coming in and out, and they move here for a little bit, and they're like, okay, I either hit a glass ceiling or I decide to move because there's better opportunity where I can make more money, et cetera. So you have a lot of people that are in and out. So that's another thing. But I think the biggest thing is that if we could create quality restaurants, membership spaces, event spaces that speak to a different Black demographic, then that would create, I think, the in-between gap that we're looking for. So, yeah.
That's a really great point that you bring up. And for me, being a transplant from Philadelphia, I actually started out in the business being an event producer. So AOI, events and PR. Yes. Ran into the same issues in Philly. And what they would do to us, I did a lot of like just professional, like upscale events. Like I'm that type, right? So we would go to the venues. Let's say we want to do rooftop, right? We have seasons in Philly. It's summer season. Let us rooftop, right? We only got 2-3 months.
Yeah.
They would give us crazy bar guarantees on like a Wednesday after work. Who's coming to drink $13,000 worth of liquor after work? And they have to go to work on Thursday. And so it wasn't a matter of them outright saying no. They would just create barriers for us to really make things happen. And I felt the same exact way.
No, 100%. And, I do think that as event producers, we have to be creative and understand how to position ourselves to make it a win-win for both people, because they are opening up their space. No one's going to open up their space for, $1,000 or something minimal because they have bills. But I think there's an in-between. And so I think that's another thing that as event producers, we have to learn how to work around. And that's how I actually got into the day party space, because that was the only time that I could get a venue. And
interesting. That
particular venue, because there was no day parties in Miami. And when I first started my day parties at 11 Rooftop, which is now Giselle Restaurant, it used to be just a regular event space. And they wouldn't give me the night. And I was like, well, man, when are y'all not busy? And they were like, during the day. And I was like, well, can I do a day party? And they're like, yeah. And that's literally how I got into the day party space. So as Black people, we're resilient, we're creative, we think outside of the box. And I think in the meantime, that's what we have to continue to do. But it's been in my spirit, like we just have to we got to open up more spaces. We have to get the money, we have to get the support, and we have to make it happen, because that is the only way that we're not going to get pushed out of Miami, and that we're going to have spaces that are really for us. So,
I love how you say got into the day party and not created.
Curated Miami.
Right. When people think day party in Miami, we think social exchange.
Of course.
Like that's who's doing it. So you didn't get into it like
trendsetter.
Right. You started it.
I appreciate that. I will change that verbiage there. So
yeah. Don't say that again, okay?
I am the originator of the day vibe in Miami.
Yes, for sure.
I appreciate that.
It was a thing, but it's a thing now.
Yeah, definitely. I have to give a shout out. There was one day party that was inspiration. It was called Recess. DJ Fly Guy used to do it at the Clevelander back in the day before they no longer had him there. But yeah, he was one of the only people that were doing a day party. And that was from 3 to 9 on Saturdays. And that was like really, really dope. So that was one of the inspirations of my original day party, which was De La Soul.
We need day parties for our age group.
Yeah,
like you know what I'm saying? Like that's a good time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You got your energy, you got good energy.
Yes.
You can go into the night, but I love that.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna officially change the title of this episode to Trendsetters. Women trendsetting.
There it is.
But yes, so Joy, I know that you also mentor other entrepreneurs and business owners. So what are some of the misconceptions around entrepreneurship and collaboration that you have found and that you help people overcome?
Oh, I like that question.
Loaded question.
I know. That is a great question. It's a good conversation, because oftentimes when people reach out to get business consultations or business mentoring, if they have a co-working space, which is 70% of my clients, they'll say things like, I want you to help me, but just so you know, I'm really far from co-space. And I'm like, don't open next door, but I'm going to help you regardless, because little side story that I tell my clients all the time is like, to the untrained eye, you would think McDonald's and Burger King and them are fighting. You would think that they're competing for that same customer, but they understand a person who wants McDonald's, and Burger King's customers are different, and Wendy's customers are different. They could all be on that same corner and they're not taking a single dollar from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, sometimes people will be hesitant to get the help they need because they think it's a competition moment, or they think that you won't want to help them because they're in your same space. And, like I said, don't open up next door to me, but I'm going to help you because I understand that when there's more of us, there's more of us.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And, people always say at the top, they're not competing, they're collaborating. And it is very true. I'm 100% with, let's collaborate. We can compete later, right? We can have a friendly competition later, but let's collaborate at the base. So that's a big misconception, is that if we're too similar, we got to be competing because there can only be one, right? And that's not the case. Another misconception that people often limit themselves with is this scarcity mindset of like having to be a certain level or be at a certain place before you can begin. And that mindset of letting perfect get in the way of good enough, it's a big thing. And especially in the Black community, because we were raised by parents who told us we had to work twice as hard to get half as much. And I remember one time I had a teacher, Black teacher, and we were in a not Black school, and she felt like she was helping me by being harder on me. And one time I told her, I was like, it would be great if you were just easier on me because we both Black. But I didn't know any better, but I just was being honest. Yeah. And I was like, that's what I was expecting with this. But yeah, I feel like a lot of us were raised with that mindset of you have to be twice as good. And I reject that. First of all, we usually are twice as good, but I don't want us to keep teaching people that you got to work twice as hard to get half as much, because why would you do that? So sometimes I feel like do the best you can with what you have, start where you are, and you will get better. Most people do. But to feel like you have to be at a certain level to even begin, it's like, well, how would you get to that level?
How would you even begin? Yeah.
How would you even begin?
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in like, do the research, take it seriously, but know enough to get started, right? So if you're building a car, learn how to make the wheel. And while the wheel is rolling, you're on top of it, learning how to make the next part. Don't be reckless, but also don't feel like you got to be perfect to start.
Yeah, my mom always says Rome wasn't built in a night.
It really wasn't.
It's like brick by brick by brick. Like you lay your foundation and you just keep going, but you're always learning. All of us are always learning something new about our industry, our business, and things are evolving because we have technology. So you're constantly going to be learning. And I also love the first point that you brought up about being able to collaborate. And that's another great example of the ecosystem that you're helping to, facilitate here, in our city. So that's dope.
Yeah. And as we learn, I think we have to continue to share, which is what she's doing. And I do with fellow curators as well, because you want 5 of you, I want 5 of me, because that's how we're able to create that ecosystem and that community that we're looking. It can't be only one person doing it. It's not.
If
it's
Alexis
not enough.
is the only person creating these events, then how are you going to party?
You only got you got 2 hands and 2 feet.
Exactly. And one of my favorite parts of CoSpace is the collaborations that naturally happen. So when a person comes into CoSpace, they're working, they're in their zone, and I might know that these 2 people need to connect. So I'll wait for the right time and be like, hey, have you met Danielle? And you guys both taking a break. Why don't y'all talk? Because you guys have overlapping businesses. And then I look, and now they're at the table together working.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's one of the natural energies of CoSpace that I work very hard to maintain, is that here we collaborate. We're all working. So you may not talk to everybody, but if it makes sense and the energy is right, I want y'all to collaborate. I want y'all to leave here with a new phone number.
Oh my gosh. Wow, this is amazing. So we are just like, time is just flying by. So let's keep building on these concepts, right? So as we're building community as Black women leaders, right? Because this is Her Story Month, this is Women's History Month. Can you talk about some opportunities and challenges? Let's talk about some and debunk some myths within leadership.
I was trying to like process the question. So
It's okay.
in a sense of debunking leadership of how women lead.
Yes.
Ooh.
Exactly.
I would say the first thing people typically always say is that we're emotional. And there may be a level of an emotion because sometimes you know that people are trying you, right?
That part.
And even last week I had a conversation with someone, expressing to them that my rate was my rate and this is what it is. And it's insulting that
they wanted to negotiate with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, it's not about a negotiation. I've been doing this contract for an extended period of time. And they were like, and I said, there's nothing to reevaluate. Like the value is there. That's just what it is. So I think as women, we do have to kind of step back and balance being direct and forward, but also being feminine in the same space, but not being emotional. Because
you know what? That is such a double standard because you don't like a man in business doesn't have to come up masculine and do business, right?
They
So
be
now
bamming the table, acting like crazy emotional people, and we
but
just
then
say
if
they're
we do that,
passionate.
we're the angry women
Right.
or we're emotional.
Yep.
So as women, we have this delicate dance because our femininity is our superpower, right?
It is.
But also we still, especially for people that work in a masculine or a male-dominated space, we have to kind of show up that way as well. So it's like you're trying to put on the mask, do the dance, and do all the things
It's
at one
just a
time.
lot.
It's a lot.
take me as I am.
Right. And then it's crazy because you do all of this and like the prizes are terrible. So it's like they want us to show up and pretend to be men in dresses. And it's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to have things that are pink. I'm going to be cute. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm a man because y'all can see me.
Yeah.
You know? And they want us to pretend to be men so bad. And then they use it against us.
Because they say like women are hard. I think also just even like outside of the business space, just personally, then you have all these women leaders sometimes that are hard. And it's hard to turn it on and off because you're like on all day with your business operating a certain way. So in your personal space, you can't do the same thing because you're in a different space. But I would say probably one of the biggest one is emotional. I don't know if it's a myth, but I think sometimes people feel like we're not able or capable in certain industries, or they wonder, are you really good?
I think that's a myth.
I guess it could be a myth as well, which is not true.
False. Yeah, it's false. Yeah.
It's very false. And I think for a lot of women, even a lot of women DJs or people in our spaces, like they don't want to use the pretty face to get them in the door. They want people to know that I'm actually good and I deserve to be here. So I guess that could be another myth as well. So.
You've raised some really great points. You want to add anything?
I don't need to add anything. I'm like, no, you nailed that. You said that so well.
Okay, so let's go a whole nother direction.
All right.
So in today's uncertain political and social climate, why is it more important than ever for Black women to create and sustain their own ecosystems?
Oof.
I don't even think it's women. I think Black people.
Yes.
Black men, Black women, we have to come together and create for our people as a village.
Yep.
I'm all for women empowerment and women doing things, but men need women, women need men. And we have to support each other because we all come with a different thought process, skills, ability, and also privilege, right? There's women privilege and there's men privileges, and we need to like utilize them for both sides to maximize. But I think overall as a village, we have to build. And though it's very unfortunate of what is happening, sometimes when our back is put against the wall, and there's pressure, it makes diamonds. And so we don't have a choice. And it's unfortunate that it's like this, but if we want to see the community that we want, we are being forced to step up, to be bold.
Yet again. I would also add that it is a hidden blessing coming.
Yes.
Because kind of unpopular opinion, but not so unpopular. But like segregation ended because they saw how well we were doing, right? We all know this. So I feel like sometimes when you think about moments where we're forced to kind of like figure out on our own, we tend to thrive. We tend to do better uninterrupted.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those moments where it may be forcing us to see it again. You know, there's a lot of spaces that when it's just us, we do perfectly fine. And when less of us is in there and more of them is in there, it becomes unrecognizable. And so I think moments like this, yeah, it's not fun to feel the way we're feeling right now, but in every bad moment, you can look and be like, okay, well, what am I going to take from this? What am I going to keep from this? And that's what I choose to keep from this. It's like we're given the opportunity to remind ourselves what we can do for ourselves, by ourselves, within our ecosystems.
Yeah, so. I 100% agree with that. I feel like desegregation was the best, worst thing because it was great that we now could go anywhere and we could have access and it was equal.
Without restriction,
But
sort of.
We abandoned our communities in the same breath because we were trying to hustle to now conquer another area.
Absolutely.
And when my mom grew up in Richmond Heights, and I realized she said, yeah, my neighborhood was all Black. We had the dentists, the doctors, we had everything there, and not realizing that it was like a little mini Tulsa, or just a Black community. They were fully self-sufficient. They didn't go anywhere.
And most of our communities were.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now we think about terms like food desert, or we think about terms where it's like, there's no Publix in Liberty City, right? But we have like 10 privately owned mom and pop grocery stores that get the job done.
Yeah.
And if that Publix pops up, that's great. We feel official, but now those 10 grocery stores are probably going to go out of business.
Right.
Yeah. So sometimes we have to like look at that ecosystem and pour into it, protect it, and be happy that we have our own ecosystem.
100%, because a lot of other cultures and races do, and it looks different for different folks. But we have to be we have to be intentional. It's not going to naturally happen.
Yeah, continuing to circulate our dollar, you know, with each other, and you know, for me. You both said it, but in this 2025 climate, it's about ownership and assets.
Yes.
And being able to buy our own and collaborate, right? If I have 50, can you come with 50? Can we partner and get there faster? Right? Not as a competition, but as a like-minded vision.
Yes.
And also thinking about, okay, how can I grow this business? I can put together a franchise this business, sell this business, allow it to grow, you know? So I'm so happy to see the movement from our Black women, our leaders who are entrepreneurial, who are also executives doing their thing. I think about Brooklyn Tea, you know,
Hampton alum.
Really?
Well, I think the husband, the husband is Hampton and the wife is Spelman. And so they also have a extension of Brooklyn Tea in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So another Spelman sister helped with the franchise and opened up, and now she's sustaining down there, right? And so that's collective economics. And if we can continue to think about that, you know, let's buy businesses. Yeah. How can I buy? How can I invest? Yeah. I got some bread. How can I invest?
Can we do it?
Yeah. How can we be business partners?
How can we gatekeep? Have you heard of the brand Actively Black?
Yeah, I have not.
Love them.
Tell us about Actively Black.
It is Black athleisure and things like that. And one of my favorite parts is how he be just aggravating the whites, and I live for it. I live for it. I double tap every time. But recently they went public. Kind of public. Only Black people can invest. And as you would imagine, it's very triggering for the people who are non-melanated who want to own a piece of anything successfully Black. And every time he makes a post about it, they all come in the comments, angrily typing. And he always tells them, like, what you gonna do? Right? Yeah.
You don't have to buy my stuff.
And I love when one of my favorite comments somebody put was, well, what if I start actively white? And he was like, well, Lululemon exists already, but pop off, you know? And I was like, great response. But I feel like we have to gatekeep because sometimes when we think about our ecosystems and the failure of them, it's not the obvious stuff, right? Like, you know, Black Wall Street, we all know that it was bombed. But what people don't know is that it actually was rebuilt and it was thriving again. And it didn't really die until desegregation. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we have these big gestures that we think destroy our ecosystems, but it's not. It's the friendly, smiling face of a person who comes in and then steals your brand from you, right? Or the friendly, smiling, helpful
that
person,
ownership. Yep.
right? Who comes in to give you a loan or give you a platform or exposure, and then you blink and now you're the minority in your own business.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to invite both of you back. And we're going to continue this conversation. To wrap things up, I'm going to spin it on the head again and go somewhere totally different. So, Joy, you also do amazing content. I love watching the stuff that you create.
Thank you.
And I want you both to just give us content, 1 or 2 content tips. And please, Alexis, give us some event production tips.
Ooh. So my top 2 content tips. The first thing is do the best you can with what you have. So if you don't have the best lighting, the best camera, like wipe that lens and get it done. Keep it simple, right? And then the second thing would be tell a story. So if you think about the reels that you watch the longest, it's because you're invested, right? So if you take the first 3 seconds to tell me why I care, right? So if you start your reel by saying, by the end of this video, we're going to be best friends. Now I want to know, well, how are we going to be best friends? And then you spend the middle of your reel bringing the story, like unfolding the story, but not revealing it yet. Because once you give the answer, what do? We scroll to the next thing. And those last 3 seconds, you give them what you told them you're going to give them in the beginning. Follow this simple format and you're going to see engagement go through the roof. It's simple. You don't need editing and all the fancy apps. You can keep it simple and just get it done. But at the end of the day, it's always tell a story. Tell your story. Tell the story of this post. Just always be in that storyteller mode and your content will get it done.
Love that.
Thank you.
My 2 tips, my first one would be know your why. Why are you doing the event? What do you want your outcome to be? What does success look like? And then the second thing is to not be afraid to invest. Or also reconfigure and recalibrate your event, your concept, et cetera. So, but you have to be willing to invest, show proof of concept, prove to people that it actually can work before you go and try to get money from people. I think everybody always says, I want to go get sponsorships, and that's great, but you have to show that there's a level of success there. And sometimes that can just be the concept, and other times you have to actually show them. And for our Black Restaurant Food Festival, I had to show people that there were enough Black-owned restaurants and an interest that people would actually come. Because when I first pitched that idea, people literally looked at me with like I had a third eye. Like the first thing was, there's not enough Black-owned restaurants. And I'm like, okay, well, let me do some research. Found there was more than enough. And then even with investing, I had to put my own personal money into it. So I didn't see it as a loss, but as an investment in my dream and my vision. So you have to be able to be willing to invest in your idea.
Wow. So I want everybody to make sure that they check out, support, follow, get engaged with CoSpace and also SocialXchange. So if you're not already connected, which I'm pretty sure you are connected, but if you're not, ladies, please let us know how we can follow and support.
Social, SOCIAL, the letter X, Change Miami. And my personal is Alexis B Miami.
And I am the COSPACE, so the CoSpace. And I would love for you to follow me and stay engaged. We post everything on our Instagram.
Again, this is the Black Prosperity Podcast. Public Information Officer Danielle Jeter here at MDeed, and you can follow us on Instagram at MDeedInfo. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in.